Meditations. Introduction: An Emperor's Guide to Unbreakable Peace. Have you ever wondered how the most powerful man in the world managed the crushing weight of stress, betrayal, and endless crises without losing his mind? 2,000 years ago, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius sat in a freezing military tent and wrote a private diary that was never meant to be seen by the public. Today, we know this extraordinary text as Meditations, a masterpiece of Stoic philosophy that offers unparalleled practical wisdom for navigating the chaos of modern life. This book is not a dry theoretical treatise. It is a raw, honest, and profoundly actionable survival guide for the human mind. By exploring its pages, you will discover timeless strategies to conquer anxiety, handle impossible people, and build an indestructible sense of inner peace. Point 1. The Most Powerful Man's Secret Diary. To truly understand the profound depths of Meditations, we must first understand the extraordinary context in which it was written. Consider the immense, almost incomprehensible power held by a Roman emperor in the 2nd century. Marcus Aurelius was the undisputed ruler of the known world, commanding vast armies, immense wealth, and the lives of millions of subjects. He existed in an era where emperors routinely succumbed to the intoxicating corruption of absolute power, indulging in endless gluttony, executing their political rivals on a whim, and demanding to be worshipped as living gods. Yet, amidst this environment of limitless temptation, Marcus chose an entirely different path. He chose the path of philosophy, restraint, and relentless self-discipline. What makes meditation so breathtakingly unique in the history of human literature is its intended audience, an audience of exactly one. Marcus did not write these words to win political favor, to impress a wealthy patron, or to secure a glorious legacy for future generations. He wrote them solely for himself. The text is essentially a collection of late-night thoughts, morning pep talks, and deeply personal reflections jotted down during military campaigns against Germanic tribes or while managing the devastating Antonine Plague that ravaged his empire. When you read this book, you are essentially looking over the shoulder of a supreme ruler as he battles his own fears, frustrations, and moments of profound exhaustion. The raw vulnerability of this text is exactly what makes it so universally applicable today. We might not have to command Roman legions or manage the grain supply of the ancient Mediterranean, but the internal battles Marcus faced are remarkably identical to our own. He struggled with the urge to stay in his warm bed on incredibly cold mornings. He wrestled with feelings of intense frustration when his colleagues acted selfishly. He felt the heavy, suffocating weight of anxiety when contemplating the unpredictable future. By constantly reminding himself of his philosophical principles, he was actively coaching his own mind to remain anchored in virtue and rationality. This leads us to a fascinating realization about the nature of personal growth. It requires constant, deliberate effort. Marcus Aurelius was not born a perfect Stoic sage. He had to work at it every single day. He had to remind himself repeatedly to be patient, to be forgiving, and to remain focused on what truly mattered. This should serve as an incredibly comforting thought for all of us. If the Emperor of Rome had to constantly redirect his wandering mind and talk himself down from the ledge of anger, we should certainly forgive ourselves when we stumble in our own daily lives. As we dive deeper into the specific teachings of this incredible diary, keep this historical backdrop clearly in your mind. The advice you are about to explore has been stress-tested under the most extreme conditions imaginable. It has survived wars, plagues, betrayals, and the relentless passage of 2 millennia. It is a philosophy built for the mud and blood of the front lines, not just the quiet comfort of a peaceful library. It is time to open the diary of the Philosopher King and see exactly how he managed to master his own mind while the world around him constantly threatened to fall apart. Point 2. Master your mind, not the world. One of the most profound and radically life-changing concepts you will encounter in meditations is the Stoic idea of the dichotomy of control. This principle serves as the absolute bedrock of Marcus Aurelius's entire philosophical worldview. The concept is beautifully simple to understand, yet incredibly challenging to practice. There are things in this life that we have total power over, and there are things that we do not. According to Marcus, the vast majority of our human suffering, anxiety, and frustration stems directly from our stubborn refusal to accept this basic division of reality. We exhaust our precious mental energy trying to manipulate external events, while completely neglecting the one domain we actually control, our own minds. Consider a highly relatable modern scenario. You are driving to a critically important job interview, and suddenly the highway comes to a complete standstill. The traffic is backed up for miles due to an accident ahead. What happens next? If you're like most people, your heart rate instantly spikes. Your hands grip the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. You might shout in frustration, mentally curse the other drivers, and feel a suffocating wave of panic washing over you. You are suffering intensely in this moment. But what is actually causing this suffering? The Stoics would argue that the traffic jam is not causing your pain. The traffic jam is simply an objective, neutral reality. Your profound distress is being caused entirely by your internal judgment of the situation and your futile resistance to a reality you cannot change. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that external events possess no inherent ability to harm the soul. If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. This single quote contains the power to completely revolutionize how you experience daily life. You cannot control the weather, the fluctuating economy, the unpredictable moods of your boss, or the inevitable delays of public transportation. However, you retain absolute, undisputed sovereignty over how you choose to interpret and respond to these external stimuli. To illustrate this, think of the mind as a highly skilled archer. An archer can meticulously control the tension of the bowstring, the steadiness of their breath, the sharpness of their focus, and the precise moment they choose to release the arrow. These elements belong entirely to their internal domain. But the very microsecond the arrow leaves the bow, it enters the external domain. A sudden gust of wind could blow it off course, or the target could unexpectedly move. If the archer's entire sense of self-worth and emotional stability is tied to hitting the bullseye, an outcome they do not fully control, they will live in a constant state of anxiety. But if their goal is simply to shoot the absolute best shot possible, focusing entirely on their own form and effort, they remain perfectly at peace regardless of where the arrow ultimately lands. Marcus applied this archer mentality to every aspect of his imperial duties. He recognized that he could enact the most just laws and command the most disciplined armies, but he could not force his subjects to be virtuous, nor could he guarantee victory in every single battle. By continuously detaching his internal peace from external outcomes, he cultivated a profound psychological resilience. He learned to look at objective reality without adding a layer of subjective, catastrophic narrative. Applying this in your own life requires a fundamental shift in daily awareness. The next time you face a sudden setback, a delayed flight, a harsh piece of criticism, or an unexpected financial expense, pause for just a few seconds before reacting. Ask yourself a very simple question: is this situation within my direct control? If the answer is no, take a deep breath and consciously visualize yourself releasing your mental grip on it. Redirect all of your focus toward the things you can control: your attitude, your work ethic, your integrity, and your response. By mastering your own mind instead of trying to wrestle the entire world into submission, you unlock a level of freedom and tranquility that no external circumstance can ever take away. Point 3. Building your indestructible inner citadel. In our modern, hyper-connected world, the concept of escaping from stress has become an incredibly lucrative global industry. When we feel overwhelmed by the relentless demands of our jobs, the constant pinging of our digital devices, or the friction of our relationships, our immediate instinct is to physically flee. We book expensive flights to tropical beaches, retreat to quiet mountain cabins, or simply spend hours mindlessly scrolling through social media in a desperate attempt to numb our overworked brains. We are constantly searching for external sanctuaries. However, Marcus Aurelius firmly believed that this geographical approach to finding peace is fundamentally flawed, primarily because no matter where you travel, you always bring your own restless mind with you. Marcus introduced a profoundly empowering alternative, the concept of the inner citadel. He wrote, "Men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores, and mountains. But this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men, for it is in your power whenever you shall choose to retire into yourself." He understood that the ultimate sanctuary is not a physical location on a map, but a fortified state of mind that you can access at any moment, regardless of the chaos unfolding around you. To truly appreciate the power of this idea, we must remember that Marcus spent much of his reign surrounded by the deafening noise and horrific violence of military camps along the freezing Danube River. He did not have the luxury of taking a 2-week vacation to a luxury spa to decompress. If he wanted peace, he had to actively manufacture it within his own consciousness. He built an invisible fortress in his mind, a quiet, rational space where external anxieties, political pressures, and the fear of death were strictly denied entry. How exactly do we go about constructing this inner citadel in our own modern lives? It begins with the rigorous practice of mental discipline and the careful curation of our thoughts. The Stoics believed that your mind essentially takes on the shape and color of the thoughts you most frequently entertain. If you constantly dwell on scenarios of disaster, harbor deep-seated resentments, and obsess over petty grievances, the walls of your mental fortress will become weak, toxic, and easily breached by the slightest inconvenience. Conversely, if you deliberately fill your mind with thoughts of gratitude, rationality, and objective truth, your inner citadel becomes structurally sound and completely impenetrable. One highly effective way to build this fortress is through the daily practice of intentional solitude. This does not require you to isolate yourself from society or meditate for hours on end. It simply means carving out small pockets of absolute silence throughout your day to check in with your own mind. It could be 5 minutes sitting quietly in your car before walking into a stressful workplace, or a short technology-free walk during your lunch break. During these brief moments, you actively step away from the external noise and retreat into your internal sanctuary. You remind yourself of your core values, you observe your fleeting emotions without judgment, and you recalibrate your perspective. Furthermore, the inner citadel acts as a powerful filtering system for the information and energy we consume. Just as a physical castle has guards at the gate deciding who may enter, your mind must have a rational filter determining which external events are worthy of your emotional reaction. When someone insults you, or when a project fails, that event stands outside the gates of your citadel. It only causes internal damage if you consciously choose to open the gates and invite the negativity inside. You hold the key. By actively cultivating this inner retreat, you fundamentally change your relationship with the unpredictable world. You no longer need external circumstances to be perfectly aligned in order to feel tranquil. You become deeply self-reliant. Whether you are dealing with a screaming toddler at home, navigating a high-stakes corporate negotiation, or sitting in the chaotic waiting room of a hospital, you can close your eyes, take a deep breath, and instantly step into a remarkably quiet, secure space that belongs entirely to you. Your peace of mind becomes an indestructible fortress that no external storm can ever wash away. Point 4, turning every obstacle into spectacular fuel. If there is one concept from meditations that has captured the modern imagination more than any other, it is the Stoic approach to handling adversity. In our contemporary culture, we are largely conditioned to view obstacles, setbacks, and failures as purely negative events. We label them as unfortunate interruptions to our carefully laid plans. When things go terribly wrong, our default reaction is often a mixture of frustration, self pity, and a desperate desire for the problem to simply disappear. Marcus Aurelius, however, proposed a radically different, fiercely optimistic framework for dealing with life's inevitable difficulties. He saw obstacles not as roadblocks preventing progress, but as the very raw material required for personal growth. This philosophy is perfectly encapsulated in one of the most famous and powerful passages ever written in the history of Stoicism. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To truly grasp the magnitude of this mindset shift, we must explore the metaphor of the fire, which Marcus used brilliantly to illustrate his point. Imagine a tiny, fragile candle flickering in the dark. If a sudden, strong gust of wind blows through the room, the small flame is instantly extinguished. The wind destroys it. Now picture a massive, roaring bonfire. When that exact same gust of wind hits the roaring bonfire, it does not extinguish the flames. Instead, the fire eagerly consumes the oxygen, using the wind as spectacular fuel to burn even hotter, brighter, and more ferociously than before. The bonfire actively transforms the very thing that sought to destroy it into a source of greater power. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to be the bonfire. He believed that a strong, philosophically grounded mind should be able to take any external obstacle, betrayal, illness, financial ruin, or public criticism, and throw it into the internal fire of their character. You do not just survive the obstacle, you actively use the obstacle to practice virtue. Let us bring this ancient wisdom into a highly relatable modern context. Suppose you are a dedicated entrepreneur, and after months of grueling work, your primary investor suddenly pulls their funding. The natural reaction is devastation. You might feel that your path to success has been completely blocked. But the Stoic approach demands an immediate shift in perspective. You look at this severe financial setback and ask, how can I use this? This obstacle is no longer a tragedy. It is an unexpected opportunity. It is an opportunity to practice immense financial creativity, to learn how to heavily bootstrap your operations, to cultivate profound resilience, and to test the true loyalty of your founding team. The loss of the investor is the raw material that will ultimately make your business leaner and virtually indestructible. The obstacle has literally become the way forward. This mindset is closely related to the deeply powerful concept known as amor fati, or the love of one's fate. While the specific Latin phrase was popularized much later by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the core sentiment is woven deeply throughout every page of Meditations. Amor fati goes a crucial step beyond merely tolerating or enduring a difficult situation. It is the active, enthusiastic embrace of whatever life throws at you. It is the profound realization that wishing for reality to be different than it is represents a massive waste of human energy. When you adopt the principle of amor fati, you stop asking the victim's question, why is this terrible thing happening to me? Instead, you ask the warrior's question, what spectacular thing can I build out of this mess? If you fall ill, it becomes a perfect training ground for patience and an opportunity to appreciate the fragility of health. If you are forced to deal with an incredibly difficult coworker, they become your personal, free of charge sparring partner in the gymnasium of emotional regulation. By aggressively reframing every single setback as an essential lesson deliberately designed by the universe to make you stronger, you effectively render yourself completely invincible. You strip the world of its power to frustrate you. When everything that happens to you is viewed as magnificent fuel for your own character development, there is absolutely nothing that can ever stop your forward momentum. You become a roaring fire, and every challenge simply makes you burn brighter. Point 5, the ultimate time management tool called death. In modern society, we have developed a deeply ingrained habit of actively ignoring our own mortality. We hide death away in sterile hospitals, disguise the reality of aging with expensive cosmetic procedures, and generally live our daily lives as though our personal supply of time is completely infinite. We endlessly procrastinate our most deeply held dreams, assuming we will eventually get around to them someday. We hold on to bitter grudges for decades, mistakenly believing we have the luxury of infinite tomorrows to eventually make amends. Marcus Aurelius recognized this collective delusion and actively fought against it by utilizing one of the most powerful psychological tools in the Stoic arsenal, memento mori, the vital practice of remembering your own death. For Marcus, death was not an abstract, distant concept, it was a brutal, ever present reality. Throughout his reign, he witnessed the devastating Antonine Plague wipe out millions of Roman citizens. Even more tragically, he endured the unimaginable grief of watching multiple of his own children die at a very young age. Yet, rather than allowing these horrific tragedies to plunge him into a state of paralyzing nihilism or chronic depression, he used the constant shadow of death to intensely illuminate the immense value of the present moment. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is not meant to be a dark, morbid, or depressing thought. On the contrary, it is the ultimate clarion call to absolute freedom and profound clarity. When you actively remind yourself that your time on this earth is strictly limited and could expire at any unpredictable moment, all the trivial, meaningless nonsense that usually occupies your daily mental energy suddenly vanishes. Consider how easily we allow our days to be completely ruined by incredibly insignificant events. Someone cuts us off abruptly in morning traffic, and we spend the next 3 hours fuming with toxic anger. A stranger leaves a vaguely critical comment on our social media post, and we allow it to destroy our self-esteem for an entire week. We engage in petty, exhausting arguments with our spouses over who forgot to unload the dishwasher. But if you were suddenly informed by a doctor that you had exactly 24 hours left to live, would you spend even one single precious second worrying about that traffic incident or that internet comment? Absolutely not. All those trivial annoyances would instantly evaporate, leaving only what is deeply undeniably important: love, virtue, connection, and presence. Memento Mori is the ultimate, incredibly ruthless filter for your daily priorities. It forces you to brutally audit how you are spending the irreplaceable currency of your life. Every time you catch yourself endlessly scrolling through meaningless content, engaging in toxic gossip, or worrying about a future event that hasn't even happened, the reminder of death gently taps you on the shoulder and asks, is this truly how you want to spend the extremely limited moments you have left? Furthermore, Marcus used the contemplation of death to completely eradicate his ego and his desire for posthumous fame. He frequently reminded himself that all the great emperors, brilliant philosophers, and terrifying conquerors of the past eventually turned to dust, their names largely forgotten by the relentless march of time. Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both, he observed. He actively realized that seeking fame, wealth, or the applause of the masses is a profoundly empty pursuit because everyone praising you will eventually die, and so will you. This realization liberates you from the exhausting burden of trying to impress other people. If legacy is ultimately an illusion, then the only thing that truly matters is how you choose to live right now in this exact moment. Are you being kind? Are you acting with integrity? Are you fully present with the people sitting across the table from you? By keeping death constantly in your peripheral vision, you stop taking the gift of life for granted. You stop sleepwalking through your weeks. You begin to treat every single sunrise, every warm cup of coffee, in every conversation with a loved one as the incredibly rare and fleeting miracle that it truly is. Point 6. The Stoic Playbook for Handling Difficult People. If there is one universal guarantee in the human experience, it is that you will eventually have to deal with difficult, frustrating, and downright toxic people. Whether it is an overly demanding boss who constantly micromanages you, an incredibly passive aggressive family member who ruins holiday dinners, or a complete stranger who behaves rudely in a public line, interpersonal conflict is an inescapable reality of daily life. Given his position as emperor, Marcus Aurelius had to deal with more difficult people before breakfast than most of us will encounter in an entire lifetime. He faced deceitful politicians, dangerously ambitious generals, ungrateful citizens, and outright traitors. Yet Meditations reveals a masterclass in handling interpersonal friction with profound grace, unshakable empathy, and strict emotional boundary setting. Marcus developed a highly specific, brilliant morning routine to mentally armor himself against the inevitable annoyances of human interaction. He wrote, "Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial." Notice the genius in this simple psychological preparation. He is deliberately setting his expectations incredibly low regarding the behavior of others. If you walk out your front door foolishly expecting everyone to be perfectly polite, endlessly generous, and completely rational, you are actively setting yourself up for massive disappointment and intense anger. By pre-accepting that you will encounter flawed, selfish behavior, you completely remove the element of surprise. When someone eventually acts poorly, you do not feel shocked or victimized. You simply recognize it as a standard feature of the human condition. But Marcus did not stop at mere cynical acceptance. He took a monumental step further into the realm of profound empathy. He constantly reminded himself why people behave terribly. The Stoics fundamentally believed that no one intentionally chooses to be evil or harmful. People act with cruelty, selfishness, or arrogance simply because they are deeply ignorant of what is truly good. They are operating under false, toxic assumptions about how the world works. Just as you would not feel intense hatred toward a completely blind person who accidentally bumps into you on the sidewalk, Marcus argued that you should not feel intense hatred toward someone who is morally or psychologically blind. They are suffering from an injury of the soul. This dramatic shift in perspective completely neutralizes your anger. When a coworker blatantly steals credit for your hard work, your initial biological instinct is boiling rage and a desire for immediate vengeance. But if you apply the Stoic framework, you recognize that this person is driven by deeply rooted insecurities, a pathetic desperation for validation, and a tragic ignorance of true honor. They are actually harming their own character far more than they could ever harm your career. They deserve your pity, not your peace of mind. Furthermore, Marcus utilized a beautiful, deeply interconnected metaphor to explain human obligation. He viewed all of humanity as belonging to one massive, cohesive organism. He wrote that human beings are designed by nature to work together seamlessly, like hands, like feet, like upper and lower rows of teeth, to actively turn against another human being, to harbor deep resentment, or to constantly plot revenge is to act in direct contradiction to nature itself. It is exactly like the left hand suddenly deciding to violently attack the right hand. So, what is the ultimate Stoic response to a toxic person who actively tries to harm you? Marcus provides an answer that is as brilliantly simple as it is challenging to execute. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When someone insults you, screams at you, or acts with profound disrespect, their ultimate goal, whether conscious or subconscious, is to drag you down into their emotional mud. They want to disrupt your rational mind and make you react with equal ugliness. If you lose your temper, scream back, and abandon your own principles, they have completely won. They have successfully controlled your mind. But if you maintain your composure, uphold your dignity, and respond with cold, rational calmness, you firmly protect your inner citadel. You refuse to let their toxic psychological infections spread to you. By mastering the art of remaining absolutely unbothered by the chaotic behavior of others, you preserve your own energy for the things that truly matter, moving through the social world with the untouchable grace of a true philosopher. Point 7. The conclusion. As we reach the culmination of our journey through the extraordinary mind of Marcus Aurelius, it is absolutely essential to recognize that Meditations was never designed to be passively read and then placed back on a dusty bookshelf. Stoicism is not an abstract academic theory meant to be debated in ivory towers. It is a highly active daily operating system for human existence. It is a set of practical mental exercises designed to be rigorously applied in the messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable laboratory of real life. The true magic of this ancient diary does not lie entirely in the elegance of its prose, but in the profound transformation it relentlessly demands of its readers. Throughout our exploration, we have unpacked the monumental pillars of Marcus's philosophy. We have learned to ruthlessly separate what we can control from what we cannot, releasing our anxiety over external events, and focusing all our energy on our internal judgments. We have discovered the incredible power of retreating into the indestructible inner citadel of our own minds, finding absolute silence amidst the deafening noise of the modern world. We have practiced the fierce optimism of amor fati, learning to eagerly throw our obstacles into the raging fire of our character so that every failure simply makes us burn brighter. We have utilized the sobering reality of memento mori to aggressively filter out the trivial nonsense of daily life and focus entirely on the present moment. And finally, we have explored the profound empathy required to navigate a world filled with difficult, flawed human beings without losing our own sense of goodness. But how do we effectively weave these massive philosophical concepts into the fabric of a frantic modern Tuesday morning? The answer lies in the incredible power of consistent daily habit. Marcus Aurelius did not achieve his legendary tranquility by having one single epiphany. He achieved it through the relentless, repetitive practice of daily journaling and continuous self reflection. You can immediately begin applying this profound wisdom today by adopting a simple morning and evening routine. When you wake up, take just 3 minutes before looking at your smartphone. Sit on the edge of your bed and actively mentally prepare for the day ahead. Remind yourself that you will inevitably face delays, frustrations, and difficult personalities. Consciously decide, before the day even begins, that you will not allow external circumstances to dictate your internal emotional weather. Visualize yourself as the archer, focusing solely on the precision of your own actions while completely letting go of the final outcome. Then, as the day comes to a close, practice the Stoic evening review. Before you go to sleep, look back over the events of the past 12 hours. Do not judge yourself harshly, but observe your actions with the objective eye of a compassionate coach. Ask yourself, when did I lose my temper over something outside my control? When did I successfully practice patience? Did I treat the people around me with kindness and rationality? Did I waste precious hours worrying about a future that is completely unknowable? By conducting this daily audit, you continuously refine your character, gradually washing away your destructive habits and reinforcing your philosophical foundation. Ultimately, Meditations is a profoundly beautiful reminder of the incredible resilience of the human spirit. It teaches us that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, no matter how heavily the burdens of responsibility weigh upon our shoulders, and no matter how many unpredictable storms we are forced to weather, we always retain the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose our own attitude. We possess the remarkable ability to observe the rushing river of time, to accept the fleeting nature of all things, and to stand as a calm, unmovable rock while the chaotic waters crash harmlessly around us. As you step back into the rushing current of your own life, carry the wisdom of the philosopher king deeply embedded in your mind. Remember that you do not need an empire, vast wealth, or perfect circumstances to achieve peace. You already possess everything you need, perfectly contained within the powerful, rational, and entirely unconquerable fortress of your own mind. Now, the only thing left to do is to step forward and begin the magnificent work of building a life of undeniable virtue, profound resilience, and unshakable tranquility.